Okay. All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Resumes for Technology, Data, and Analytics Career Meetup today. My name is Lori Brazili. I am one of the career coaches that works with our technology, data, and analytics career community. And this week is our personal branding career meetup week. And so all of the meetups that we're doing in the Career Center this week have this topic around personal branding and how to market yourself. And so your resume is one of your most important personal branding tools. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you can tailor that for tech data and analytics roles. If this is your first career meetup, just to kind of give you a little bit of background about how today is going to go, I have some slides prepared, so we will go through some content. And then after that, I will take questions. So because of the small size of the group, you'll most likely be able to get answers to any questions that you have. So go ahead and you can start putting those in the chat. I will go ahead and address those at the end so that we can ensure that we get through the content. So we'll be wrapped up here about 1:45, if not a few minutes before. So just to kind of give you a sense of what the timeline is like. All right. So I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware about the Niner Career Challenge. That is kind of the big career readiness kind of effort that we have going on this semester. And so this is a chance for you to win spring tuition. And so the idea here is the more that you participate in some of the events and services that the Career Center offers, as well as some of our campus partners, you're going to be able to earn points by attending those events. And so at the end of the semester, we're going to be able to draw for 5 students to win spring 2025 tuition. So if you scan that QR code, it's going to give you a little bit more detail about the challenge. And you do need to sign up in order to participate. Once you sign up, you'll be able to see an electronic scorecard where you can track all of your points throughout the semester. So this is kind of like the first official week or unofficial week, if you will. And so it's going to take probably a couple weeks just for the electronic scoreboard to show up accurately. So just kind of give us some grace in that. But really great opportunity for you to engage with our office. And then, who doesn't want a chance to win spring 2025 tuition? So again, all students are eligible to participate in this. The other thing I want to touch on before we get into the content is this idea about career skills. Now, career skills are skills that employers are looking for from undergraduate students, graduate students, alumni, really anybody that's coming out of college or a program, and they're going to be going into the world of work. And so we have these 8 skills here on this slide that every year we ask employers from around the country, what is it that you value most in a candidate? And so what are you looking for from that candidate on their resume and how they present themselves in an interview and all of those things. And so you can kind of see the eight career skills that we focus on. And so today's topic, resume writing, is going to focus on our professionalism and our communication career skills. So just a little bit of kind of best practices when it comes to setting up your resume. So in general, there's not a hard or fast rule when it comes to resume length. We typically encourage undergraduate students to try to stay with a 1-page resume. If you're a graduate student or if you have, a number of years of work experience, you're an alum, then it can be appropriate to have a resume that's more than 1 page. And so we would say 2 pages could be appropriate. So depending on your situation, you want to stay within that 1 to 2 page range. The margins that you're going to set up for your document, somewhere between 1/2 inch, 0.75 inches to 1 inch, 1.25 inches. So you can kind of adjust the margins around your resume depending on what you're trying to accomplish with your resume. So if you don't have a ton of content to put on your resume just quite yet, maybe you're an incoming first-year student, you might want to use, 1-inch margins. If you have a lot of content and you're trying to stay within that one page, then maybe 1/2 inch or 0.75 inches makes sense for you. So it's really just going to kind of depend. Again, these are not really kind of hard and fast rules. You definitely want to make sure that you are sectioning off the different aspects of your resume. We'll go through the headings here in just a few minutes. So you want to make sure that those stand out. And you want to use a consistent font style and font size. And so my recommendation would be to choose a font style that is easy to read electronically and in person. And you want to just kind of stick with that font style. And then anywhere between 10 and 12 point font. So I personally love 11. But again, it's going to depend on what you're trying to accomplish with your resume. If you're trying to stick within that 1-page requirement or suggestion, then you can definitely, maybe go as low as 10. But also keep in mind that you do have people, recruiters, hiring managers that are looking at your resume. And so you want to put your resume together for a human eye to be able to read it. And then making sure that you're putting in appropriate spacing between each section is ideal, and then even between the different positions. And then you want to make sure that your resume is well organized and easy to read. Okay. And if whoever just came off mute, if you can just mute yourself for me, that would be really helpful. Thank you. All right. Okay, so what are some components of a technical resume that make that a little bit different than your traditional resume? So when you're putting your technical resume together, you definitely want to make sure that you're incorporating a technical skills section. So when you put skills sections together, ideally those are going to be focused on more of the hard technical skills as opposed to career skills, which may be more of like a soft skill, like teamwork, collaboration, that sort of thing. But with your technical skills, these are going to be things like programming languages or foundational concepts, operating systems, maybe data visualization tools, any sort of tool or technology or any technologically related concepts and proficiencies that you have, you want to build that into your technical skills section. I also highly recommend that you have a project section. So this can be course projects or personal projects where you're going to be able to highlight the skills in that project. And so this can be great for, students that don't have a ton of experience just quite yet. Maybe you didn't do an internship and you're applying for full-time jobs. You're going to want to leverage the projects that you have from courses and maybe from your personal time. You're going to want to leverage that on your resume. So it's important that you put together a project section. And then you might have some additional hyperlinks on your resume. So for, technology, for software engineering type of roles or web development, maybe you have a GitHub or a Kaggle if you're kind of in the data science route, or maybe you have a portfolio if you're doing more of like a UX design and you've built a portfolio, a website, you might have a link to that. So you want to make sure that those things are incorporated into your contact information section. So those are kind of some examples of what makes a technical resume just a little bit different than a general resume. So we're going to kind of break down the different headings here in terms of the section. So this is what we are going to be going over. I'm going to move through that. So with your heading, your contact information up at the top of your resume, you're going to list your name. You're going to list a good phone number that you can be reached at, and then a professional email address. So that could be your Charlotte email address. It could be a Gmail address or Yahoo or something else that you might be using. Just make sure that whatever email that you're using, that you check it frequently. And then you're definitely going to want to include your LinkedIn URL, because this is going to be an additional place where the hiring manager or the recruiter can go and see more information about your experience and skill set in education. So those things are kind of like must-haves on your resume. Optionally would be your address. And by address, I mean like the city and state. So if you're applying for roles inside Charlotte, you might want to include Charlotte as your address. If you're applying for a role back home, let's say you're from Massachusetts and you have, your house is in Massachusetts, then you might want to use that as your address as well, so that you can kind of, demonstrate a location. But that's optional. If you decide to leave it completely off, that's totally fine. There's not going to be a need for people to mail you anything physically anymore. So any sort of communication from the recruiter or the company is going to come in the way of email and phone number. So with your education, you're going to want to make sure that you list all of the degrees that you have received from like a higher education institution. So you're going to start with where you currently are at UNC Charlotte, whether that's a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or a PhD or post-bac, postdoc, or whatever you may be. You kind of want to use that as your education starting point, and then you're going to work your way back. So at this point, you'll leave off anything that's like high school. But if you have an associate's degree or another bachelor's degree or another master's degree, whatever it is, then you can include those. You'll just include that after UNC Charlotte. So you want to make sure that you're spelling out the degree that you're pursuing, when you're going to be expected to graduate, obviously the name of the institution, which would be UNC Charlotte, where it's located in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then any additional information that might be helpful, like if you're doing a minor or if you have a concentration or area of emphasis. And then you can include your GPA as well if you would like. Generally speaking, kind of the best practice for GPA is if it's a 3.0 or above, go ahead and include that on your resume. But it's optional. It's not something that you're required to include. But it could be helpful, especially if you're applying for like an internship program where the employer is looking for candidates that have a minimum GPA. And then you can see at the bottom here, this is just kind of a screenshot up close of how you could put your education section together. Your experience section is probably the most important section on your resume. And by experience, we're talking about like part-time jobs, internships, maybe classwork that you did, volunteering. It can be a number of different experiences, but this would be experience ideally that's related to what you're applying for. And so when you're putting your experience section together, you have kind of a heading that includes your position or your job title, the company that you worked at or the department, if it's like UNC Charlotte, the dates that you completed the experience and where the experience was located. So if it was an internship in Charlotte or an internship in Raleigh, or you did a volunteer position in another state, whatever the case is, you just want to include all those details kind of in the heading of that experience. And then below that heading is where you're going to use bullet points. So you're going to write some bullet statements to describe essentially what you did in the role, what you achieved, kind of what the impact was of what you did. And so the formula that we recommend when you're trying to put together a bullet point would be starting with a strong action verb. And so an action verb could be something like developed or created or analyzed, and then state what you did, and then the purpose or the result or the outcome behind it. So when employers are looking at resumes, they're ideally looking for impact. So they want to see things that demonstrate kind of the value or what you were able to achieve as a result of what you were doing within that experience. So anything that can be quantified by numbers or percentages, or talk about in a general way the result or outcome of your actions. So that's kind of the formula that you want to use: action verb plus what you did plus the result, outcome, and why. And then with the project section, again, we're talking about course projects or personal projects that maybe you do on the side. You would want to give your project a name. So if it was, an Android app development project, if it came from a specific course, you would include the name of the course, or you would leave that out if it was personal project. And then the dates that you worked on the project. So if it was a course project that you did over like a fall semester, you could say something like September to December 2024 as an example. Then underneath the heading for the project, this is where you're going to include those bullet points. Okay, so I would say one bullet point that describes what the project is. So just a general statement about, what the project is. You don't need to go into too much detail about what the project does. And then the rest of the bullet points, so we're talking about maybe one or two more bullet points, identifying what you did and the tools and the technologies that you used in the project, and then any associated outcomes if you have that. So you want to make sure that you're including results. So if you, developed a model and it helped increase efficiency by 15%, you want to make sure that you're including that information. And then again, you're using power verbs to describe what you did. So making sure that each bullet point under the project section starts with those power verbs. Okay. And so I can answer more questions about that if you have that later on. So then you might have some additional sections depending on what all is on your resume. So some popular sections outside of the technical section, technical skills section that we already discussed could be language skills. So if you speak other languages outside of English, you could potentially do a language skills section. You might want to do relevant coursework. I would say this is most common for individuals that don't have a ton of experience yet, but want to demonstrate maybe some courses that relate to what they're applying for. Or for example, let's say you're pursuing a cybersecurity internship, but you're not doing the cybersecurity concentration in computer science, but you've taken some courses already, or maybe you did like a Security Plus certification through, CompTIA or something like that, then you can include stuff like that on your resume. If you are, thinking about undergraduate research or graduate research, if you're a research assistant, you could do a research experience section. So research is a really great way to gain career skills and technical skills. And so if you have that experience, you definitely want to make sure that you're talking about it on your resume. So these are some example special sections. It's not all inclusive, but these are the ones that we wanted to highlight today. Okay, so just some resume do's. Make sure, again, that you be consistent with the font style that you're using and then the font size. Make sure your resume is well organized and easy to read. Again, you want to put yourself in the recruiter's seat. And so you want to make sure that things are not too overwhelming for them to read. And you want to make sure that it logically makes sense in terms of the order of your resume. So the order is important. You want to make sure that you're putting the most relevant information first, and then you want to work in reverse chronological order as well. So let's say you have a 2-page resume, make sure that everything on the first page is relevant to the role that you're applying for. And then in each section, as you're listing your experiences, you want to list the most recent experience first and work your way back. So that's what we mean by reverse chronological order. Again, power and action verbs at the beginning of each bullet using this bullet point formula that we talked about, where you start with the power verb, what you did, and then the results behind it. So an example would be developed a web application using Java and MySQL to improve website efficiencies. As I said before, if you can make your bullet points quantifiable and results focused, that will go a long way. It will help you stand out to the reader. And then make sure that you accentuate the positive and lead with your strengths. And so what I mean by that is just making sure that you're not overrepresenting yourself or misrepresenting yourself on your resume. Try not to discount what experience you do have, whether or not that is from the classroom or outside of the classroom. So make sure that you kind of think through all of the different experiences that you bring to the table. And if you need help with that, that's why we're here as career coaches. And then make sure that you're having people look at your resume. You definitely need to be coming to the Career Center and having a professional review your resume. You want to make sure you're always proofreading your resume. And so you may have multiple versions of your resume depending on what you're using it for, because your resume should be focused on a particular job. And so it's going to require you to proofread over and over again. And you need to make sure that you're doing that, because that can be a really easy way for a recruiter to just kind of like skip over you if they see that you have misspelled words or you have some grammar errors. That's a really easy way to kind of get lost in that pile there. And then as far as what shouldn't be on a resume, these are things that we would say you definitely want to avoid. So any sort of like personal identifiable information, that's not something that would belong on a resume. Your marital status, your age, any demographic information, those things are not part of the resume. That might be the case in other countries, but at least in the US, it's not something that you would see. We also don't put photos on our resume. I know that in other countries, that is kind of the norm. But here in the United States, it's not something that you would use. The exception would be for more kind of like arts, performance arts type of careers. And since y'all are in tech data and analytics, that's not going to apply to you. You also want to make sure that you're using third person language when you describe your experiences, so avoid using personal pronouns. And then information like interests or saying that you have references available upon request, and high school information really should be left off the resume. I would say things like interests are great to include in your About Me section on your LinkedIn profile. High school information, the one caveat I'll say about that is if you are a first year student and you don't really have much to put on your resume, then it is going to make sense to include high school information on there for now. And then once you get more experience behind you, then that stuff can start coming off. So what are some of the resources that we have for you? Well, we do have a career guide that has a whole resume writing section. There is a strong action verbs list. There's a lot of different examples of different resume headers and sections so that you can kind of get an idea about how you might be able to put yours together. There's also a technical resume example in our career guide. So scanning that QR code should bring you to our career guide. If you want a tangible career guide, please feel free to pop into our office. If you come for drop-ins, more than likely we'll offer you one. So you can definitely have that in person, kind of tangible document if you would prefer to have one of those. And then in terms of getting feedback on your resume, I recommend that you start with career coaching drop-ins. So we offer drop-ins Monday through Friday from 10 to 3. You don't need an appointment. These are going to be like 10 to 15 minute sessions. So this is where you can get immediate help. You may have to wait a little bit, but again, it's 10 to 15 minute conversations. So anybody can help you with your resume, and we're happy to give you feedback on that. Where we're located is Atkins Annex, which is beside Atkins Library. If you prefer to do a virtual drop-in, we can definitely do that over Zoom. When you go to our website, there is a button that you click on that will put you into the Zoom room, and that's available during our drop-ins Monday through Friday from 10 to 3. Make sure that you're following us on social media. So our handle is at Charlotte Career Center, and we're on all the major social media outlets. Our website is career.charlotte.edu. I highly recommend that you go to that website, that you favorite it. You can find all of our events. We have a ton of resources on there. And so please make sure that you're utilizing that as well. So we have about 15 minutes left. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I know that we had a lot of questions come through, I believe. So I'm gonna see what that is in the chat here. There's a question about sending you slides afterwards. Yes, I can send slides to everybody that is in this Zoom room. I'll make a note. So yes, Amanda, I can do that. Another question. You're new to computer science and have not done any projects yet. Do you think your resume could still stand out from others for internships as long as you put previous job experiences that show teamwork, communication, and general skills? Yeah, I mean, I think it would depend on the internship that you're applying for and what type of technical skill set they're looking for. At the internship level, I mean, companies aren't necessarily looking for, people that have the most skill or the best skill, because the internship is going to have bandwidth for you to learn a lot of that on the job. So if you're the type of person that's like naturally curious and open to learning, and then you do have some of those like career skills that you mentioned, communication, teamwork, those general skills, that will definitely go a long way. The thing that you have to think about with internships too is, depending on the job posting, you may have to be a certain class standing, like you might have to be at least a junior or potentially a sophomore, but you can also include, like you said, previous job experiences or any of the courses that you might be enrolled in right now. Like if you're in 1212 or 1213, or that data structures class tends to be the foundational course, at least for undergraduate computer science, that can kind of get you prepared for an internship. So hopefully that helps. Will there be a chance to have resume review or anything like that after the talk? No, unfortunately not today. I mean, you can do a drop-in. So not with me today specifically, but after this, you're more than welcome to do drop-ins. We have them until 3 p.m. today. So yes, Sejal. One-page resume or preferred more than two-page resume. Yeah, so like I said at the beginning, maybe you missed this. It really just kind of depends. We recommend for undergraduate students to try to stay with one page. If you're a graduate student or you have significant work experience in technology or data, then 2 pages would be okay. So there's not really a rule. These are just best practices that we recommend based on our experience and what employers are looking for. So Chase, this is going to be included on our YouTube channel. So the Career Center has a YouTube channel. So eventually that's where it'll live. You're welcome. Awesome. Any other questions that I can help answer, feel free to put those in the chat, or if you want to like raise your virtual hand and you can come off of mute. Let's see something else. Yeah, Payam. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think so what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to probably meet with a career coach to figure out how you can best take like your research experience with those data models, the machine learning models, and kind of put that in terminology and verbiage that is more industry focused. But yeah, if you're working with machine learning models and you have, you already have the skill set most likely for something in like the data space. So just by that small paragraph, I would assume so. It's just going to be a matter of you demonstrating those skills in a way that speaks to industry as opposed to something that's a little bit more research oriented. But we can help you with that. Heather, about high school involvement. What about school involvement in programs? Should I add specifically an internship experience? Okay. So I think the question about like campus involvement. Yeah, definitely campus involvement or clubs and organizations can be another section that you can include on your resume. I didn't talk about that today, but that's definitely something that sometimes people have. And then if you have internships already that you've done, you definitely want to make sure that that's on your resume. So hopefully I'm answering that question. Cassidy, would volunteering have its own heading? Yes, Cassidy, volunteering, or like community outreach or community involvement, volunteerism typically would be like a separate section. So yeah, its own heading. Yes, yeah, you can definitely, Heather, you can definitely put club and organizational involvement. Um, Sejal, yes, with the resume, with the coursework, I would say if you are trying to fill out your resume, maybe you don't have a ton of information on it, then relevant coursework can be very helpful. Yes. If you have too much on your resume and you're trying to cut stuff out, then relevant coursework may be a section that you cut out. So it just depends. You're welcome. It just depends on your situation. Yes, these are good questions. If you have others, keep them coming. So while we're waiting, I wanted to make sure, since most of you are probably in the technology, data and analytics space, is the week of September 23rd through 27th. We are having our fall tech data and analytics career community week. And so this is a week, I'm putting the link in the chat. This is basically a week that we have for students to connect with employers and to learn more about kind of industry and career information related to tech data and analytics. So we have both virtual and in-person options to connect. And so take a look at that website. Hopefully there's some things that you're interested in and you'll want to participate in. Okay, achievements and certifications. Can you mention those on their resume? Yeah, absolutely. You could definitely do, so for certifications, I would say it depends on what it is. If it's definitely like, let's say you did like a Google Analytics certification or, something kind of like a professional certification, yes, I would definitely include that on your resume. You could do a certification section. You could also maybe include that as part of education and training. So there's a couple of different ways that you can include that, but I definitely would. Achievements, yeah, if they are important to you, like you can do academic achievements, or if there's something that you achieved like through an outside organization or something like that, it could make sense for you to include those things. But yeah, those things are definitely on resumes. Heather, what if the projects don't necessarily pertain to cybersecurity, like an intro to Java project? Yeah, I mean, I think if you're at the internship level and you're applying for internships, any projects that you can demonstrate technical skills at this point is going to be something that I would include. So it's okay if it's not 100% like cybersecurity, maybe you haven't gotten into that coursework just quite yet. So yeah, so if you did a programming project, anything that kind of demonstrates technical skill is going to be something that you would include for now. All right, I'll give you one more minute for any other last questions before we end today. Also want to make sure that everyone knows about our fall career and internship fair that is happening on September 13th. So we have over 200 employers that have RSVP'd for that. So you can find more information about our career fair in Hire a Niner. You can view a list of employers that are going to be there. And then the week leading up to the fair, we'll have several career fair crash course events to kind of help you get prepared for the fair. So make sure that you check that out. Again, that's September 13th. You can find it, find all the information in Hire a Niner and also on our website. So make sure that you don't miss out on that. Okay, not seeing any other questions in the chat. So thank you again for participating today. Hopefully you learned something. I'll send out the slides to the group. And if you need anything else, feel free to reach out to me or Alona Ellis. We're the two career coaches that work in tech data and analytics for the Career Center. So, all right, thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye.